Let's talk about the new mod in City Skylines that is going to make building all kinds of networks so much easier and more accurate. I'm of course talking about the new network multi-tool made by Max Sergey, the creator of the intersection marking tools, for example, or recently the building spawn points. Now, the network multi-tool is here to replace the Elektrix's road tools. You are most probably familiar with Elektrix's road tools because right now, and it already has been for quite some time, the most essential mod, in my opinion, for building roads, especially roads and railways, because of this feature to smoothly align slopes, but also all these other things. Now, the network multi-tool has all of these features except for the flipping of the segments horizontally. But to be fair, I never used that one, so, maybe it's not needed anymore. But it does have the merging of two segments. It has the adding and subtracting the nodes, and of course the align slope. But the network multi-tool also brings us many more new features that I'm going to show you in this video because they are insanely powerful and just amazing. I don't really have any other words to describe that. So let's go. And I'm first going to go through the functions that are shared between the network multi-tool and the Elektrix's road tools. Now, before I start, there's actually one thing that I wanted to show you. So I'm using the FPS booster mod, and I think that is the reason why this is happening. But look at this. This is, for example, just a simple road. I'm not really sure if it's a single segment, as we can tell by just hovering over it, move it like that. And if I'm just going to open the window for the Elektrix's road tools, and I'm going to make the button for adding a segment or adding a node right over the road and click it, then it's immediately going to apply. And this is super annoying when working in like very dense areas where I just have to, before selecting the button, the function, I just need to move the UI so that it's not over a road. I think this started happening with the FPS booster. But anyway, the point is that the network multi-tool does not do that, okay? It does not do that at all. So that's absolutely amazing for me, at least, because this was really annoying in like really dense areas. Anyway, so yeah, the functions are pretty much the same. So adding nodes, as you can hear, it's kind of going to give you this nice little overlay, very similar to the intersection marking tool, for example, and you can just add nodes wherever you want or dissolve nodes like this. So exactly the same thing as before. Now, when it comes to merging the two segments, again, that's exactly how it used to work in the Elektrix's road tools. So I'm going to click this intersect segment nodes, and that's it. It's going to do its thing. And if you have, I'm going to show you, if you have the segments, the nodes way too close, for example, like this, it's going to give you a nice error message and tell you exactly what's going on. So for example, like this, right? So that's nice. Now, by the way, one thing, by default, this little window, it doesn't stay open like this, but if you go to the options of this mod, then this button, auto hide modes panel, I clicked it off. That's something that you might consider doing as well, because in my opinion this is so much better. By the way, all of these have a shortcut, so they go by control 1, 2, 3, all the way like this to number 8. So that's incredibly useful. I'm going to be using the shortcuts a lot when I learn all the all the functions. So that's going to be really nice. And of course we have the align slope, which works exactly like it did with the Elektrix's road tools, unlike the align slope in, for example, Move It, which works slightly differently. And maybe for networks, this is a lot better. So we can click, where is it? This, control 5, that's the fifth function. Now, I'm not really sure, but it seems that the network multi-tool right now does not have like select all nodes between two intersections, for example, unlike the Elektrix's road tools, but I'm sure that's going to be added, or maybe it's already there, I just don't see it. And by the way, you can actually, if you're going to right click, then it's going to deselect everything. You cannot click two nodes that are not their neighbors, right? So for example, if I want to click this one, it's going to give me an error and I can't click it. So that's actually kind of nice, because the Elektrix's road tools, they allowed you to click all kinds of nodes really anywhere, and especially when you had some kind of roads over different roads, or like railways, like really dense urban urban situation, then that was a bit of a problem. So this is kind of nice that it's going to tell you that you are selecting the one road. Or it's actually not going to allow you to select anything else. It's showing you these nice percentage signs. You can actually switch that in options for degrees, so that's going to be really nice. And it seems that these are actually showing quite consistently. If you remember, in the Elektrix's road tools, sometimes these did not appear. You had to kind of select it from the other side. That kind of worked, but then sometimes they disappeared. So this is a lot more consistent, and the numbers are just bigger. It's kind of nice, like it is now. Anyway, once you have it selected, just like in the Elektrix's tools, you're gonna hit enter and it's gonna be all good. So this is really nice. And finally, the best for last. These two new functions are really going to make my old video about road connections super obsolete, because they are just going to do everything for you. So these two new functions are create loop and create connection. That's not exactly telling you much, but essentially what it is that the create loop mode is going to create a curve, a single curve between your two segments, and the create connection mode is going to create two curves with a straight in between, of course. So what I mean by that, let's show. So I'm going to create the create loop, and there are just these two segments. I'm going to click one and the second, and it's going to give me this option. So this is basically already calculated the ideal position of these two straights and the curve with its radius and the angle, right, between the edges. So I can actually, as you can see in this nice little helpful window, I can use plus or minus, or actually equal and minus signs, but you can change these, I guess, in the settings to increase or decrease the radius. That is incredible. And you can actually even press, right now I have it set to Control S because by default it's Tab, but Tab is just doing something else for me. And it's actually going to give you this nice little loop like that, which might be useful, for example, if one of these roads is like much higher than the other, obviously. So for some kind of highway interchanges, this is just amazing. And you can just really go all the way, like really far away, as you can see, with these kinds of roads connections. So unlike, for example, the precision engineering, where you kind of need to be close so that some of the protractors and whatever are kind of going to snap, this can just go on forever, almost. So that's absolutely amazing. And anyway, when it's done, you're just going to hit enter, and that's it. Now, what if I wanted to do the loop on the other side? That's actually very, very easy. I'm going to click these two segments again. It's going to show me this direction, but what I can do is I can actually go to the segment that's selected and click the node at the end of it. And that's going to tell the mod that I want to have that curve there. But obviously I need to do it on the opposite segment as well. Otherwise, it would be just a really weird curve. Now, right now I have the radius set to very high values, so I would kind of need to hit the minus sign. Now, in my old video, I also showed you a technique how to do like an S-curve. Now, an S-curve is actually kind of simple to do when you have these two roads and they are parallel, because the easiest way to do that is basically create just a segment in between them. Now the segment should be built only using two actual road segments, which we might obviously do by simply removing one like that, and then checking this node, moving it roughly to the center, and then using move it with the segments and doing something like that. Yeah, whatever, that's kind of long, right? What I'm just gonna do, I'm gonna take the create connection, I'm gonna click these two segments, again, just like before, click that node, and that's it. Hit enter, and it's done. It obviously created the straight in between. If I didn't want it, I would obviously just fiddle a bit with these radii. Now, of course, there's also another option. As you could have seen, by default, it wanted to create this loop, and if I click this end node once, it kind of created the loop again, just like slightly differently, but I can click the node again and it's going to give me exactly what I want. Or I can actually go crazy and create something like this, which might be actually super useful for, I don't know, right now this kind of reminds me of like a roundabout highway exit, dumbbell interchange type or something kind of like that. So, possibilities are endless with this. And with this, I can actually increase the radii for either one of these curves, or I can actually do them for both. Again, all the instructions are here in this window, right? So that is super useful. And if you're going to go too big with the radii, it's going to show you these nice overlapping circles where it's kind of graphically telling you how it's just not going to work. So this is just absolutely crazy and amazing. And by the way, just like with all the other mods by Max Sergey, you can use the buttons right now, Shift for higher increments and Control for lower increments. So by default, it's kind of changing like by 20 meters, but the radii, I can actually just hold Shift to change it by, I don't know, 100 meters maybe, I'm not exactly sure. Or I can just hold Control and do it by 1 meter. And I can actually manage to do it so that I don't have that straight segment there almost at all, right? Anyway, when I'm done, hit Enter and it's all right. So those were the basics, and right now I'm just going to show you the practical process of, I don't know, building a railway, for example, and this is kind of something that blew my mind. So what I basically need to do at this point with this mod, right now I prepared like an obstacle course, let's call it, and I just want to build like a railroad that's going to follow this valley, let's call it, right? So what I need to do at this point only is pick the straights, pick the directions really. So for example, I want my railway to just go through this valley right here. That's probably going to, I don't know, going to go maybe in here. Then it's probably going to circle around. Maybe there's going to be a train station or something like that. It's going to continue through this valley and eventually it's going to exit with this direction. So this is basically all I need to do. Now I'm just going to take the network multi-tool and I'm going to finish making the curves. So I'm just going to do clicking on the nodes like I showed you so that the curves are obviously built the right way. And I'm immediately going to also see the radius, all the radii. So even if I was building like a super realistic railway, I can immediately see the radius, calculate the speeds or kind of estimate the speeds and just, you know, update my design and whatever. This is just great. This highly reminds me of my old college days when I was doing like railway assignments and we were just painting these kinds of or drawing these kinds of railways in AutoCAD Civil was it called. The process is basically the same. This is absolutely amazing. So I mean, people were kind of joking about City Skylines becoming like a 3D editor or something, but I don't know. It's getting really close with all these kinds of tools that are just going to make it so much easier to do these kinds of things. And that's it. That's absolutely done, this kind of railway. Obviously, I could have fiddled with it so that I have all the curves with the same radii. So I would probably put like the same velocity on the entire stretch in here. But this is just great. This went super fast, as you could have seen as well. Oh, and one last thing that I forgot to mention, especially for railways, but even for highways, roads, it is planned, or at least considered, that Network Multitool's later versions will have options for transition curves. So that's gonna be just amazing. Finally, we're gonna be able to build super realistic railways in City Skylines without really doing any like calculations or using just move it to move stuff around and then kind of circularize it. This is just gonna do all the work for us, and you know, with a couple of clicks, it's gonna be done. So chances are, when you are watching this video, you are probably not even using version 1.0 like I am right now, but some kind of a version where it already is. So great. I was almost done editing this video and then I noticed that I didn't add this amazing thing that you can do with the multi-tool. So this is supposed to be like a train yard, obviously work in progress train yard, or like a complicated train station. It has just a couple of tracks. These are of course the tracks from the railway collection, and these are nodeless versions. And I'm supposed to do this like an end of this area where all the tracks kind of converge into one point or diverge from the main track, right? And if you've been doing something like this in City Skylines, then you are probably already screaming with horror, because this is not exactly all that easy to do, especially with only the tools that you had until this point. Only move it, so you were basically just doing the curves kind of randomly just so it looks good. You were not really able to do the radii exactly the same everywhere, and overall it was just frustrating to do this kind of thing, right? Well, now you can do it with the network multi-tool, and this is just absolutely crazy amazing. So I'm obviously going to be using the two new tools for the loops, and I'm going to start with the 2-curve version. And this is going to be the first off track from the main line, which is supposed to be this one down here. Now, I already kind of fiddled with move it when I was moving the position of this node right here, the start of the off track, or the straight of the off track, and this node right here, which is supposed to be like the start of the junction, right? Now, why I did that? Because I already have a radius kind of chosen. Let's say that I want to do 150 meters. It might be like 200 or whatever you want to do, realistically. You might find like, sheets for like engines that are going to be running into this area, what kind of minimum curve radii they need, You might really do this super realistically if you want it. And the point is that with this mod, I can actually maintain that radius everywhere in this area. Everywhere. Every single curve is going to be exactly the same. So that's the main selling point. And it's going to be super fast build as well. Well, if I'm not talking, obviously. Anyway, let's get going. So I'm going to take this segment right here, this start, and this one that I already prepared. And like I said, I kind of want to aim for like 150, for example. So I'm going to click that node again, just like before, so I can get it right. And then I'm going to go and do that 150. Oh, by the way, something that I didn't mention before, not only you can use Shift for increment of 100, and Control for 1 meter, you can also use Alt for increments of 0.1. So for all these really fiddly small places, that is going to be super amazing. Actually, now that I look at it, maybe these curves are kind of far away from each other. Maybe I want to fiddle a bit more with this segment, let's say. So let's move this node a bit closer. Oh, this is just kind of difficult to estimate how far away these need to be. Obviously depends on the spacing between the tracks as well, so it's kind of difficult to give any real advice on this. Anyway, I'm gonna go probably, let's say, oh, look at that, 149, and I actually cannot go to 150. Let's keep it at 149 just so I can already progress further. And as you can see, this is actually kind of critical and interesting. It's only going to create 2 segments. Yeah, this line, dividing line, is actually telling you that there are only going to be two segments. So if you're going to fiddle with the radii on the double curve, you can get rid of that middle segment, the straight one, okay? Anyway, this is done. I'm going to click enter. And this is now going to go much faster. So I'm just going to create the single curve, and I'm going to click the first segment on this newly created curve and the straight here. And yeah, this is a bit wrong, so I'm going to click where I wanted it to be, and look at that. That's exactly what it needs to have. So in here, I'm actually going to go to that 150 because in here I have the space, and I'm going to click enter. That's it. I'm going to now go for this straight. Then for this one, again, click it, the nodes, so that it's exactly where it needs to be. I'm gonna go to 150 and it's done. I'm gonna click this straight, the node where it needs to be, and again 150 until I am done with this entire end of the railway. And actually, you don't even need to take care to just bring these straights very close. As you can see, I mean, I just deleted these. I might even delete this node just to make really sure that I have enough space for those all the curves that I really wanted to have, because this tool is obviously going to fill that straight no matter how long it is, really. Or I suppose that there might be some limits, but I haven't really encountered those yet. So this is just great. The best thing is that these tracks don't even need to be parallel. Like, I cannot even imagine how I would be doing this if we would just move it really manually. If, for example, the main track was not parallel to all these different off tracks, right? So I would probably have to just do some kind of trial and error. I would be constantly zooming in and out, looking at the curves, if it's looking okay or not, and it's just not needed anymore. I can just click the network multi-tool and do this super fast. So yeah, Look at this. This is just done, and it has all the curves properly done. And since I'm using the nodeless variants, even the tracks perfectly match. And I know that all of these curves, well, except for the first one, but that's going to be a little secret, are exactly 150 meters. By the way, just a tiny disclaimer, this is not supposed to be like a tutorial on how to do these kinds of Railyards, because sometimes in real life they don't have this like a central line on the side which is completely straight, but maybe sometimes it's just going to branch out into like 3 or 4 tracks, and from the 4th it's going to continue branching out into all the other ones. But that kind of depends on just how you want to have it in your city. But this is just to show you the capabilities of the mod. That's basically it. And all these different connections you can do exactly the same way. And like I said in the beginning, this actually does work for even decorative segments. So I can take, for example, this nice decorative wall right here, and well, maybe this is not exactly the right geometry, and I can even do the curves between them. So I'm just going to take the create loop and to do this. This is going to be a bit more fiddly because these kinds of decorative networks might be like kind of tiny, so clicking these nodes is not exactly all that easy, but as you can see, this is just absolutely great. And let me just see if even the aligned slopes work for these kinds of networks, and they do. At least I can click them, so it appears that I can do this. It's a bit fiddly, obviously, clicking the nodes, like I said, just like before, but it does work, and it's even going to show you the percentages. You kind of need to click the enter twice sometimes, just like with the Elektrix's road tools. That's probably just because of the algorithm, how it's connecting the segments together. But yeah, it works. It works fine. Okay, so just to summarize, the Network Multitool is just an amazing tool, and it's going to be one of the most essential mods really right now to create, to be serious about creation of any kind of networks in City Skylines. Now, I would like to just summarize a couple of things that may or may not be super intuitive at first, even though the rest of the mod is. But the first thing would be the change of the direction of the curves, right? That is the clicking on the end nodes on both segments, right? If I only click once, then obviously the curve doesn't understand where it needs to be built, but I need to click both of them. And then we have the increments. If you're not familiar with the rest of the Max Ergaze mods, then those are Shift, Control, and Alt, okay? So Shift in this case is 100 meters, Shift minus, of course, button, that's 100 meters. Then we have the default, so just minus or equal sign by default, that's going to be 10 meters. Control for 1 meter, and Alt for 0.1 meter. Obviously not very useful for highways, but for railways, definitely gonna use that one. Anyway, guys, that's gonna be all for this quick tutorial. Well, not really tutorial, just a showcase video. And hope you liked it. If you did, then you can do all those kinds of things like clicking thumbs up and stuff. And I will see you with some normal building videos on Thursday. All right, take care and goodbye.